Welcome back to Higher Exchanges, the #1 independent cannabis investing show, where we break down complex cannabis markets into clear insights you can actually use. Here are your hosts, Jesse Redmond and Morgan Paxia.
Welcome back indeed, and thanks to a talented artist named Chris Otchy, O-T-C-H-Y, for the amazing new intro music. You can check out Chris on Spotify. I am Jesse Redmond, Chief Strategy and Investor Relations Officer at Leaf Brands, and I'm here once again with the smartest cannabis investor I know. He's the co-founder of Poseidon. He's Morgan Paxia. Morgan, good day to you, sir.
Good day is right for us SoCal folk.
It is
a real treat for the end of February.
Yeah, we're talking to our guest. We'll announce here in a second backstage, but yeah, it's about 81 degrees here, Morgan, and I know that's not the case in most of the country.
Yeah, you guys get that little bit of extra heat. It seems you don't get that ocean air. It's a chilly 70 here. We're doing just fine now.
As long as you're not shoveling snow right now, I think you're doing okay.
Yeah, friends and family in the Northeast are. It's that time of year. I swear they just get real dark. Waiting for spring to come.
Well, Morgan, we have a ton to talk about today, but before we introduce our guest and get into the agenda, I'd like to remind folks the show is once again brought to you by FlowHub. And Morgan, today they're going to drop their DC episode of the Great American Dispensary Tour. The first two shows were amazing. What can we expect in this third installment?
Oh, I can't wait. It actually dropped right as we're starting the show. So it's
cool.
On their YouTube page. And so check it out. It's always a good mix of entertainment and education that Kyle does. And, he's a great guy on the screen and, trying to find out boots on the ground, talking to both consumers or if people admit they're consumers, like at Maryland, people were just, it was kind of wild that he couldn't find anyone that would say they're, retail buyer, but then he also talks with operators and hears about the challenges that they're dealing with and what's working for them. And so they're fun short episodes, worth a watch. Check it out. I'll be tuning into that at some point today.
Yeah, just go to YouTube and search for FlowHub, and it sounds like it's already up there. I'll be checking that out tonight as well. And without further ado, Morgan, let's bring in our guest. His name is Bill Morachnick, CEO of Charlotte's Web. Bill, appreciate you being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Morgan. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, great to have you. And so much to talk about today. We're talking backstage that we have an absolutely packed agenda with so much finally going on in the CBD space. But before I toss it over to Morgan, Bill, I just want to start the show out on a personal note and thanking you for all the work that your company does. I shared on social media that I have a 10-year-old niece named Dylan. Hey, Dylan, if you're listening, she listens to Higher Exchanges, believe it or not, sometimes. She thinks it's funny to hear Uncle Jesse on the radio, as she says. And the reason I bring her up, Bill, is that she has cerebral palsy and epilepsy. And so in that special needs community, they've seen, products like yours just change so many people's lives, all around the country. And sometimes you hear sad stories about people in crazy states where they can't access CBD products and they're getting together in a rented van and driving across 2 or 3 state lines to get products like yours. And when they get them, just the changes in their lives is amazing, especially on the epilepsy side, which I'm sure you know. But I just wanted to start with a little bit of a personal element and let you know your products are really making a difference in people's lives.
Jesse, well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry the struggle, right, that the families have to manage that. But it's nice to hear that we can support you. But I know that is a struggle, and God bless your niece. That's incredible.
Well, with that, Morgan, why don't I toss it over to you and you can kick off the opening framework.
All right. Well, Bill, I remember Charlotte's Web from the early days of Stanley Brothers, a real memorable moment for Emily and I when we were, back in the early days of Poseidon was the Sanjay Gupta special, where, Charlotte Figge and just so much history around and educating people about CBD and, its potential benefits and how it was actually being proven in real time and with people's lives that were improved from it. And we were live tweeting back in the day when that special was going on. It was a very illuminating time. It felt like a very freeing moment for the industry to be, on a national stage like that with proper recognition instead of just all the nonsense stigma that we still have to deal with. Unfortunately, the media still doesn't do a very good job, but platforms like this are helping to, at least we're trying to, improve that narrative. But, so I feel like I've got a pretty good background on Charlotte's Web, seeing, and having interaction with, the company from way back in its earliest days. We were investors through, that period of time with our first fund. But love to hear from you. You've come into the company after a bit of time, but just, level set for us on Charlotte's Web.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the Charlotte story one more time. If you have a short version of it, I think that's great as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was probably introduced to it, the company and the story, about the same time you guys were, and it's such a moving story. I think the disappointment is the massive impact that CBD products have had and their origin. It hasn't resulted in where we should be today. And I scratch my head all the time. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me that we're in this place still fighting and still struggling. And when you see it, the kind of the personification of that is with Paige Figge, who's been fighting this battle for over a decade, trying to bring the solution that helped her daughter Charlotte to the masses. And for those, who don't know the story, Paige's daughter Charlotte was born with a very debilitating orphan disease, Dravet's, that caused many, many seizures throughout her day from birth. So it was right from the start of her earliest existence, many hundreds of seizures throughout the week that were unmanageable. And they tried a myriad of pharma solutions. Ultimately, they couldn't solve for it. And they had her in hospice care because they just ran out of options. And Paige had done all this research vis-a-vis the internet / the web, hence Charlotte's Web. That's the origin of the name, and came up with different extractions of CBD that seem to be having a positive impact on people with similar circumstances. So found the Stanley brothers, who are able to grow the specific cultivars of what she had deemed could be helpful, actually provided the extraction to Charlotte in hospice, and the seizures stopped immediately, like clockwork. And I love this quote from Paige. She said, "That was the moment I got to meet my daughter," because she hadn't been able to up until that point. They went on to continue to provide this original formula to Charlotte, and the seizures dropped to about one a month from several hundred a week. And she was able to have a quote unquote normal childhood and do all the things that children of her age were supposed to be doing. Ultimately, unfortunately, she did not make it through the COVID period, due to probably immunocompromised challenges. But she had a really nice chunk of time with the family. And that led to, I think, as you guys know, this is where the Sanjay story starts to come in. Thousands of people coming from around the world, many of whom Paige was hosting at her house, because these products weren't available anywhere else in the world. So you had these Colorado refugees, as they were known, coming in to get treatment, to get access to the formulation that had similar results for virtually everyone who experienced them.
Yeah. What year was that, Bill?
So this is, kind of that 2014 all the way through up until the Farm Bill, right? Okay. Where it became nationally. I can't remember the precise timing when Colorado legalized prior to the national legalization. You guys might know. But it was that whole period from 13, 14 through 18.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. It's still out there on, I'm sure on CNN you can find, Sanjay did 2 of them. Great special. I mean, the family is, part of history, and kudos to them for everything they did for their daughter, and I think they helped to change the world, which is incredible, and brought benefit to so many more people.
Brought the benefit, and I'm sure you heard me tell the story. So maybe your audience hasn't, but stop and think. Charlotte passed 6 years ago or so, and Paige fights tirelessly. She is every single day, 7 days a week, fighting for access, fighting for the right regulation and legislation to open this up to everybody who can benefit from it. You just don't find that many people on the planet that are so selfless and doing it for nothing other than to gain access for those who could benefit from it. So she's really just an extraordinary person.
Yeah. Well, that kind of, transitioning over to the business aspect of things, I mean, that really kind of kickstarted this massive, kind of first wave CBD boom in the United States. I remember back in the last heyday, there were so many CBD companies out there making all these claims, and, a lot of them were, they were smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of hot money, but they were printing money. I remember they were all bragging about their, free cash flow and their high EBITDA margins. And it was, juxtaposed to the cannabis side, which was still very underscaled and losing money. And they were saying look how great we are. But then there was just so much oversupply and so much confusion in the market, kind of self-destructed itself. It was great for a period, and then, subsequent, but, you guys managed to survive through that.
Yeah. Survived. Right. That's the appropriate word. Again, this precedes my involvement. But if I go back, looking at it more as a historian than someone who experienced it, what was supposed to be a very fast follow in 2018 to the Farm Bill was FDA regulation that would establish guardrails and ways that companies had to operate, claims that they could make or not make, quality standards, on and on and on. Again, the fact that hasn't happened 8 years later is so disappointing, because you had a massive influx of brands without any regs whatsoever. So of course, what was going to happen, right? Wildly inferior products that just trash the whole category. So if I look at it through the lens of someone who didn't experience it, it went from a fad to snake oil to being something that was wildly manipulated. The pivot was into the Delta 8s and the high octane Delta 9s, because it could still be Farm Bill compliant, but not at all what it was meant to be. Not at all what was intended when the Farm Bill passed. All of this should have been avoided by setting the right regs from the get-go, to do that in conjunction with the passage of the Farm Bill. It hasn't happened, but fingers crossed, we're getting closer to a place where we get a comprehensive resolution to the things that haven't happened thus far, that can really allow this to be the category that it deserves.
Right. And so, so that was Gen 1, that's come and gone.
Yeah,
for the most part. And now we're looking at a potential new and more permanent, supposedly, with a clear regulatory path with Medicare reimbursement, so I guess, how do you look at it, where we're going now with this, what's going on with the executive order and where CBD is heading versus that last cycle? Do you think, how do you compare the two, and how are you preparing for this one versus how the company prepared for the last one?
Yeah, I think I can't really speak to the last one, so bear with me. Bear with me on that.
Yeah.
Looking at it, I think secondhand. So I'm can't tell you like I was in the room where it happened back in the day when the company went public and had its brief heyday. But at that time, my understanding is the anticipation was FDA regs were fast follow. So a facility was stood up, which we're still in, that was designed, ironically, I'll use that word, for where we are today, what just happened. So sometimes the tortoise wins. Like if you're slow enough, the opportunity catches up to you. So I'll come back to that in a second. What's happening now? It's like it's wildly frustrating because it's one day it's all glory and the next day it's doom, and we keep riding this wave. And I know you guys are experiencing this as participants in the industry. So if we go back just a little bit to the end of last year, and we had I think it was November, where the continuing resolution went through. And the language that's what's now known as the hemp ban, right? The Ag-Approach bill got snuck in, and setting these absurd restrictions on levels of cannabinoids that can exist in a product, which basically wipes out everything, right? It'd be an isolate industry, and that we can't allow that to happen. Fast follow to that in December is the executive order. And I'm not going to talk to the rescheduling side. That's a different animal, but just on the CBD, where Dr. Oz talked about the CMMI program. So where we stand now is we've got this Medicare opportunity that's rolling out, but we need clarity on what happens between now and November. Are we going to be able to provide the products that are meaningful to this audience that's now been promised that they'll have access to them? So I am very encouraged. I'm very optimistic that we land in a good place, and I can speak to these programs that are unfolding with the caveat that there's as much that's not known at this moment as there is. And I think it's just trying to navigate and establish. This is the bane of anyone who runs a business. Building what we can with the knowns and building contingencies around the unknowns, depending where they land. So that's how we're approaching this moment in time.
And Bill, I think somebody could look at this, the ban on a lot of the intoxicating stuff that wasn't really focused on, the CBD side of things, and maybe looked at as being either neutral to you or even potentially good for you. But there's a nuance there in terms of how CBD is made, and there's a nuance there in terms of the CMMI program, which I'll dive into more in a second here, focusing on full spectrum. So before we get too deep into that program, can you explain from a Charlotte's Web perspective or just an industry perspective what you see as the problem for the CBD space with the current hemp regulations or the proposed ban?
Yeah, so the proposed ban set among other things, I'm just getting right to the heart of it. So ignoring the issue around other cannabinoids other than THC, it set this limit of THC at 0.4 milligrams per package, per container, right? Which is ambiguous as well. But if you took like our 30, 60, 90 count of full spectrum product, it wipes out all of it for everybody, right? You cannot have a full spectrum product that will meet that guideline. I don't know where that came from. It seems very arbitrary. I believe, I think you guys do too, the intention of the law or the bill was to address the rising popularity of these Delta products. And we've seen the proliferation of it in convenience stores, not truly age restricted environments, although convenience stores are a lot of times because they sell alcohol and other products. But we've seen this massive proliferation. We get that, and we support the government's desire to manage that. But you're, to use the phrase, they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because there are levels much, much higher than that, THC levels, that are still non-impairing, as defined by Johns Hopkins and Dr. Ryan Vantry, who's done the most exhaustive studies on this. So the Griffith bill, which is one that we deeply support in the House, it goes up to, it asks the FDA to come in and put forth these regulations that would set the upper limits. But in this 3 milligram per serving range of THC, with various ratios of THC to CBD to other cannabinoids, is the place where not we just believe, but science says is where we should be to deliver efficacy for the need states that we're addressing.
And so, Bill, what's a good ratio there in terms of efficacy? Like, if I'm taking 50 milligrams of CBD, how much THC do I want to have in there to unlock that entourage effect?
It depends, and it depends what other minor cannabinoids that you might be leaning into, like whether it's a sleep product or a focus product or what have you. Our original formula, the one that we used for Charlotte, is a 20-to-1 CBD THC ratio, and it gets to about a mig, 1 to 1.5 milligrams of THC in a serving with that 20-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC. And there's some other, some other science behind there, which I can't disclose, but that's a nice place to be.
Okay. And so let's jump forward a little bit. It's December 18th. We get the executive order. Morgan and I have talked Schedule 3 to death, so we're happy not to talk about that for an episode, Bill. But there's also the really exciting part about the Medicare initiative. So can you start out at a high level and explain just what the program is?
Yes. And keeping in mind, it keeps evolving and morphing. So I was on another discussion, I think it was the end of last year. And it's kind of embarrassing because what I was disclosing then had changed like 4 weeks later. So everything I'm saying now, please caveat it so that I don't look like I don't know what I'm talking about if something changes a week from now, whenever you drop it.
Today, guys, is Thursday, February 26th at 1:23 p.m. to give Bill a timestamp. Thank
you. So where it stands now is this, and I think your audience, I'm going to use the letters, the acronyms. Do you want me to clarify what they mean, or?
Yeah, just do it once just to get people up to speed. Yeah.
So the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, which is a subsidiary, if you will, the government doesn't speak this way, but or a agency within Health and Human Services. So RFK Jr., the head of HHS, in addition to FDA and CMS, the Center for Medicare Services, there's another entity within CMS, which is run by Dr. Oz, called CMMI, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation. And that group looks at innovative ways of bringing optimized health outcomes, cost savings, et cetera. So they've got a very interesting and broad mandate to bring innovative things to market quickly, test them, see if they deliver against the promise or the hope, and then they can scale them accordingly. So, and that comes in the form of a pilot. So the CMMI initiative is this Medicare pilot for CBD, which today includes EOM, which is the enhanced oncology model, which is a certain number of doctors, oncology doctors and medical practices can opt into this EOM program where they're deploying different modalities that CMMI has said we want to try out. And these doctors that are part of the EOM can deploy those solutions, whether it's a product or a device or a protocol, to their patients, and then they record, is this working? Is this not working? Are there some things we see that we should be concerned and we want to dig deeper? Is it knocking it out of the park, et cetera? So you've got this enhancing oncology model. It's relatively discrete. I think, a couple thousand physicians are part of that, where the CBD program has been, quote unquote, approved for that audience. Okay. And I'm going to come back to that in one quick second. In addition to that, there's the ACO program, which is the Accountable Care Organization program. That's also within the CMMI framework. That's about 75 medical practices. They can be large-scale hospital networks, care practitioners that are associated with various networks. They are spread across the country, and there's different ACOs in different geographies. And again, it's a opt-in, voluntary kind of construct where these medical practices come into the ACO, and the ACO's charge is to similarly find ways that they can provide superior outcomes for Medicare patients than what exists today, in a way that's much more cost effective. And I can't, I'm not an expert on this. I think some of this is derived from the complexity of Medicare and Medicaid. We know it's fraught with various abuses and it can be gamed. You got a lot of money involved, government working with major insurance companies and healthcare providers. It's a very big onerous system. So both the government and the insurance companies are looking at ways of extracting cost while still delivering a really good outcome. And the ACO is designed to help evaluate and then accelerate things that they see are working. So the CBD program is now part of the ACO structure. And because everything in this world has to be wildly complicated, and I mean the world of insurance and government, the current ACO program is approaching its 10th birthday in 2026 and at the end of the year. So that program is called the REACH program. And now it's a bit of alphabet soup, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but REACH stands for something. That program is sunsetting, and it will be replaced in 2027 by the LEAD program, LEAD. Again, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's the LEAD program is designed to the new and improved version of the ACO REACH program. The CBD program, using that term loosely, has been approved for LEAD, but it's also been approved for REACH. Okay, so it's like we got a couple of months to deploy in the REACH program, and then we have to understand how the LEAD program, beginning in Q1 of 27, is going to treat the CBD initiative. What we don't know, we know that it's approved CBD to be part of LEAD and REACH. We don't have the playbook yet. We haven't been presented from CMMI, this is how this works. So here's the companies who can participate. Do they have to be good manufacturing practices? Do they have to have COAs? Do they have to have certain third-party quality approvals? On and on. It doesn't have to be priced in a certain way to extract a certain savings for certain cohorts. We're awaiting all of that. One more thing, just because I really want to confuse you and your audience.
You're getting there.
I'm getting there. On top of that, in 2027, what's also been approved is the CBD as part of Medicare Advantage. So now I'm going to bring it all full circle. Think of it, if you're thinking of it in like columns, you've got the EOM, Enhancing Oncology Model, which is available right now. We're talking to oncology docs and educating them about CBD. so that they can begin thinking about how they might want to offer this up to their patients. You've got the ACO, both reach and then lead, fast follow. Don't have the playbook for that yet, awaiting that from CMMI. And then you've got Medicare Advantage, which will be deployed, what we're told is Q1 of next year, of 2027. So if you're thinking about it, because you're business guys, where is this going? The TAM, total addressable market, goes from something quite modest at this moment to something that's enormous in 2027, because the number of Medicare Advantage participants is very large and growing all the time. So as we think through, as a participant, in the CBD category, one that treats medical as not only our heritage, but our future, we're designing our business around these pilots that are taking place in each of those three columns.
Okay. Yeah, that's deeper than I've heard it broken down before. In my simple mind, Bill, from reading the headlines, I was thinking 2026 limited, like you said. I was on board there for the oncology part of it. And 27, I had in my head program expands, and with qualified conditions like, was it pain, sleep, anxiety, stood out for 27, and then going into 28, maybe it broadens more. Does that jive with what you just said, or do I have that wrong?
No, I don't. So the unfortunate thing is it's being leaked out, right? So at this moment, until we see it published, so to speak, there's a lot of hearsay. Okay. So I've heard rumblings of different need states that you'd have to address. And then I've heard, the Medicare patient and their healthcare practitioner can determine why someone might need it, right? So if someone's suffering from difficulty with sleep, it may be an issue of them taking a sleep product, but it could also be an anxiety and calm product that might help address the central issue. If someone's experiencing pain, but also could use some help with sleep, how are you slicing and dicing this? That's not advantageous for the beneficiary. So I don't know where it is going to land, but I would suppose that if within the pilot that will land in a place that aligns with what CBD is best at doing. And it's primarily those three things. And then there's general wellness and focus and other items. But I think that senior population is primarily interested in, anxiety/calm, sleep, and pain.
Yeah. And as long as we're talking about rumors and speculation, there was some speculation, Bill, that the regulations for the pilot program were supposedly done in January and just haven't been released yet. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't think so. I think the giant elephant in the room is what happens with the program, the CMS/CMMI program, in a world where we don't have clarity yet what happens after November, right? So at this moment, if we go by what was in the Ag Approps bill and the continuing resolution, it's just a matter of time before we're going to a 0.4 milligram per container situation. So when we get the details around the CMMI programs I was just referring to, I can't wait to crack it open as soon as the book comes out. I'm like, so how much THC is allowed in this program? Is it a carve out? What are we doing? Is it what it said thus far is you have to be in compliance with state laws and federal laws. Well, what's the federal law? Is it what is today, or is it what's coming in November, or are we changing what's happening in November? So it's like uncertainty layered on top of uncertainty. And as you guys know, and you Jesse, in the business that you're in, growing stuff. I mean, what the heck do you guys do? I mean, farmers, they don't turn this around in 3 months. They need to know what to plant, when to plant it, what kind of yield they're going to require to service the people that you serve. They're talking, within the Griffith bill, there's another one that talks about this 2-year extension to help the farmers figure stuff out. I don't know how else to phrase it. It just frustrates the hell out of me because these all seem like such absurd self-inflicted wounds. In the end, what do we know? We know there's I've heard all kinds of numbers. There's 40 something million people that use CBD products daily, right? What are we doing? Why are we, forget what you do to my business or your business. We'll figure out ways how to move forward, but you're torturing this massive amount of people, and then subset of that depend on these products. So when the CR language came out, when the ban came out, we saw this massive spike of people stocking up. And I say this from the heart. I've never been more disappointed to see our sales go up. I knew exactly why it was happening. Yeah. And it was so heartbreaking. And I think of people, Jesse, like, I don't know if it's your brother or sister, who the parents of your niece, I don't know what kind of budget they're on. I don't know if they're like extending themselves to bring these products in because their kid depends on them. It's unjust. It's cruel. It's short-sighted. And I keep using this word. It's so irresponsible. And it frustrates me that our legislators and regulators are tone deaf to it. And I pray that we land in a place that is sensible.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. Unnecessary is another word that comes to mind. Like, just get your shit together. This is just completely unnecessary. But, being cannabis veterans, we see that on the plant touching side all the time, where just common sense regulation, just doesn't happen and never happens quickly. Just jumping back to the TAM, Bill, I did some napkin math and I came up with something like, if just existing seniors that use CBD participate in the program, that's like a $4.5 billion market. Does that kind of math jive? What your thoughts are?
I'm not going to hold up my sheet of paper. That's
okay.
No, you're right on. You're right on. So, and I think if you do similar math, it's about 67 million people on Medicare. And I hear different numbers. I'm sure you do too. Like, there's 15 to 20% of that senior population that uses the product. And if you multiply that, the math that we've heard, or the number that we've heard still to be confirmed, is about $500 a year is what Medicare would cover. Yeah, you're at 4.5 to $6.5 billion in TAM just off of that. What you'll hear me say a lot is in this case, I think that portion of the TAM is the very tip of the iceberg. I'm more excited about the validation that the reimbursement brings than the reimbursement itself. So being
interesting.
I think it's we had this relationship with Major League Baseball. I don't know if you guys know that, and we've since had to cancel the part where we're paying for the kind of the marketing side of it. It just couldn't like move things forward because I don't know why. I didn't do a deep analysis, but it wasn't generating sales. And my conclusion, just based anecdotally, was I don't understand. I'm the voice of the consumer. So a baseball player might be using it. I'm not a baseball player. I don't know what this does for me, et cetera, et cetera. When Medicare comes in and says indirectly, not explicitly, we believe in this so deeply that we're going to pay for it. Wow. That takes a population that may be reticent to move on it because they've heard, negative things about it, to really consider it. And that just swings the door so wide open for us to have a discussion, us as a brand, with people that might be curious. Yeah. And that, to me, I'm not so concerned about the 15%. I think maybe we have a proportionate share of that audience already, taking our share times the share of that. It's that 80% that hasn't been here yet. That's really, really interesting. Another interesting statistic is again, I've seen different numbers. I'm just going to take the median. It's about 95% of seniors 77 and older have tried cannabis, have tried a cannabinoid. I'm not sure which one. Had some experience. I don't know how we got from that to maybe 15% who use it regularly. I think because it hasn't been regulated properly, that it opens up, a ginormous audience and I'm also very confident that we can address issues that they have in a much cheaper way, in a very safe way, and in a very effective way. So that's the source of my optimism. It's the TAM off of, 15% of 67 million, but it's really the other 85% of 67 million and what portion of those we bring into the category.
Yeah, I think the validation is big, and I think also the economic incentive is big. Like when I was, I had a cannabis dispensary, Bill, when I first entered the business, and I was surprised how many seniors were buying cannabis for medical reasons, and how many of those are on a fixed budget. Like they would buy the cheapest ounce once a month, just something to get them by to ease whatever their symptoms were. I knew one guy named George, who I've talked about before, who was a veteran, and he was selling his Vicodins, 67-year-old guy, selling his Vicodins to a friend because the VA would give him Vicodin, but they wouldn't give him cannabis. So he'd sell his Vicodin pills for cash, and then he would turn around and use that money to get cannabis. And so I think there's so many people out there that would be curious to try this, but they don't have another 30, 40, 50 bucks a month. And to some people, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but a lot of people out there, an extra 50 bucks a month to see if something works just might not be in the budget. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to, bring people into the space that don't know about it or, economically haven't gotten into it. And just one more, Morgan, then I'll toss it back over to you. But do you know, Bill, if companies have been selected to participate in this pilot and how those companies were selected, what they've been looking for?
My understanding is there hasn't been a selection process. And I don't believe that's how this is going to work, but this is my own speculation. I don't have any inside information on this. I believe it's going to be here's the ground rules for a company to participate, and then if you can adhere to that, you can be part of the program, if you will. So,
then is the name of the game marketing to patients, marketing to doctors, or if that landscape is pretty open, how do you think that brands succeed?
Yeah, so now all we can really speak to at this moment is the ones that we believe are participating in the program, right? So the EOM, the ACOs, and Medicare Advantage. Let's take the ACOs because I think it's the cleanest model, but it'll apply to these other ones as well. It's a pharma commercial model where you would, if you're a company, if you're a brand, if you're a manufacturer, you'd have to presumably, let's just say that CMS or CMMI, same thing in this context, sets here's the rules for anyone to participate. Okay, so you have to pass through that. Then you'd have to talk to an ACO. So one of these 74 national organizations, and get them to buy into your proposition and that they feel like you're a credible source and that you're worthy of them sending a memo out to their network saying, hey, it's cool if you talk to Bill from Charlotte's Web. We've approved their portfolio of these products, but it's at your discretion if you want to make this part of your treatment protocol with your patients. So you've got these multiple layers of selling, convincing, establishing buy-in. As the program exists at this moment, and I don't know if this subject change, they didn't want CMMI, they didn't want brands reaching out to consumers and making a case to them. I don't know if that was a stopgap till they figure more out. But assuming it stays like that, then you've got to make your pitch to the medical provider, and then they would talk to their clients / patients. Again, gut feel, I think that would go away, because how do you create a proper pilot if you can't educate the people that will be consuming it? That seems like you've only got one side of the equation solved for.
So how does the pilot roll out in April if they haven't selected what products are going to be in it?
Yeah, good question. We're like, can you please tell us how this thing is going to work? What you can do in terms of rollout is put your materials together of how you're going to go out and engage with those audiences I just mentioned. So how do you want to talk to ACOs? How do you want to talk to the members of the ACO consortiums? Because that takes a minute, right, to put all that together. So where we stand today, we've put a lot of work into a traditional go-to-market strategy for that audience, for that medical channel. That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Very interesting. Does this, I'm going to get to my section here in a sec, but does this change any of your existing business? Are you still able to go D to C? Do you, like, if you're going to be a participant in the pilot program, or does it restrict what kind of business you can do, or is it all kind of status quo and you get to do this additional piece?
It's the latter. It's both, Morgan. So we're full speed ahead with our current business. Keeping in mind our current business, which is predominantly D2C, but we've also got, we're the largest, I believe, CBD participant in what's known as integrative medicine. So natural medicine, and that's inclusive of a whole range of naturopaths. So it could be massage therapists, chiropractors, all forms of natural healing. It's a very big industry in America. I believe we are the largest CBD participant in that category. Our strategy is two-pronged into medical. So the CMS as well as the integrative. And we're leaning even much more heavily into integrative than we ever have before, because we believe there's a very powerful halo effect associated with CMS's validation, Medicare's validation, with people who are also visiting an integrative health specialist, that even if they're not a senior, where we can say, as this isn't the copy, don't quote me on this, I'm bad at this, but as this is reimbursed here, for your best night's sleep, consider this from your natural medicine caregiver.
And do you disclose how much you produce yourselves versus contract out to other farmers?
Yeah, so we're seed to shelf. So it's our proprietary plant genetics, our proprietary seeds. We've got a off-site facility that looks like Fort Knox, where we protect those seeds and what happens with them. But then we work with our dedicated, not that they can't grow other stuff, but for us, our farmers that are doing our grow. And then we bring the biomass into our facility and we take everything from there. So we do everything other than the growing of the biomass comes back into our facility for QA, extraction, manufacturing. We've retained some relationships with various co-mans so that we have redundancies. But we stood this up, our own complete manufacturing a year ago, and it's phased in. So tinctures, gummies, topicals are done in-house. And there's some gel caps that we do outside.
And you have pet products, right?
Pet products, yes, we've got some co-mans on that. We're figuring out where we go with pet.
Will pet be part of Medicare reimbursement?
I guess, yeah, in dog years, right? Once a dog turns 8 or 7, like whatever.
My previous dog was a huge beneficiary of CBD pet treats.
Awesome.
Can't exclude them. They deserve to be included as well.
Is it just real quick, Morgan? Is that all outdoor material, Bill, or do you use any greenhouse or indoor for some reason?
I want to say, I can't think of an indoor facility that we have right now.
Yeah.
We're all outdoor.
Yeah, I think people sometimes miss it's hard to compete on COGS if you're using even greenhouse material sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's helpful context because I'm, going back to this like legislative situation, right, where there's this potentially huge opportunity in 27 as this greatly expands, but there's this big open question of, so we get there, but we cannot produce, or farmers are not going to produce, right? I mean, I don't know how your farmers are they okay? Are they going to grow this year? I would assume so, because it's your seeds. It's not like they need to go sourcing and they're not sure what they're going to grow. They can just go ahead and proceed. But just thinking about this legislative landscape of, you mentioned the Griffith bill. Is that the HEMP Act? Just to make sure we're all clear on. Okay.
That's right.
And, I saw something today in Marijuana Moment. I don't know if you saw that article, where they were trying to bring this up in for a hearing, and there's some pushback about we're not going to hear this. So you don't have to tell me about how frustrating Congress is. I mean, anyone that Jesse always tells me to plug my ears when, safer banking comes up, because I've lost so much faith in our legislation and
that's the noise Morgan likes when I bring up safe banking.
Because they should do their job, but they don't, for various reasons, which seem very apparent, for biases and compensation reasons. They just don't want to push things forward. But I guess, it does seem like the hemp industry has been better than cannabis on getting things done. But how do you get this through and within a timely enough manner that there's not massive disruptions that are, seemingly set to start hitting, as the months go on this year?
Yeah, I mean, all I can share is there's work being done feverishly as we speak. We're supporters of different lobby efforts, like One Hemp and CAN, and I get briefings like anyone else, can sit in on. They're doing amazing work to get this resolved in a timely fashion. So we, people like Paige Figge, who's the executive director of Cannabis Access Now, she spends, I don't know what percent of her time, but wildly disproportionate amount of her time in DC. I mean, she lives in Colorado, but she's in DC constantly driving this agenda, because how do we end up in a place in November where what's currently proposed becomes the law of the land, and the disruption to lives I would be, I don't want to say unprecedented. That's hyperbolic. It would be awful. Yeah. Your question though, Morgan, because there's the intermediary steps, farmers. How many other ways can America figure out how to screw over farmers? When we get into trade battles, they're like always the collateral damage in my lifetime. All of a sudden, China's not buying soybeans because we impose these tariffs, and it's like I think the legend is kind of true. With like, there's this hardest working, most honest, humble living class of labor that we have in our country. They're the backbone of our origin story of America, like all of these things. And I feel like we construct ways to make their lives more and more miserable. And this one's so self-imposed. So I would be beyond disappointed. I'd be shocked if we don't get to some place relatively soon, which at least protects the agricultural side of this till it can be more figured out. But I really don't want another interim solution. I want a comprehensive solution.
Right. Well, yeah, because I mean, the supply side is only so good, but if you can't sell it, then the farmers are not going to be okay with the risk of that. So, I mean, I do agree, but I also do wonder is the hemp industry very clear in its messaging in DC? Because even hemp has been fragmented to the industrial side, to the CBD more specific side, to the intoxicating hemp. And, is that message clear in DC about what change you guys are trying to resolve for? Because this is where then it starts to feel like cannabis, where, we're all over the map in DC. And that's part of the problem where Congress says, we don't know what the hell you guys want because you come at us from 5 different angles and no one knows what you guys really want. I mean, so how is that happening with hemp right now?
Yeah, it's a really great, insightful question, because I think that's what's held this whole industry up, including, the marijuana side of it, is if you can't come to the legislative body with a cohesive ask, it creates inaction.
Right.
And so I think there's probably, there's more organizations than One Hemp and Can, but I think that's been a primary part of their charter, is to aggregate the interests of the category CBD, so that there is a singular ask of what we want. Where that stands, it's deeper into the lobbying than I get into, because I'm just one voice among the other voices that participate in the lobbying effort. I think we're in a there's nothing like a crisis that sometimes can create unity. And given the level of the crisis and the timing of the crisis, meaning November 2026 is going to come sooner than any of us want if we don't get this solved. That's driving probably much more cohesion and singular ask than probably has ever existed before.
Yeah. And actually, a question just popped up that I didn't even think of, but in this legislative kind of efforts, are you trying to include access to listed exchanges? I mean, I know you don't need a legislative act to be able to be on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. They can act independently, but I mean, is there advocacy work around doing that? Obviously that would change your access to capital dynamics meaningfully, but I just hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Things have changed. You guys tracking share prices and where things are going. If you had asked me that a couple months ago, I'd be like, we're persona non grata. Our market cap is so low, like no one's interested in that conversation. Now that we've elevated, I'm that guy. I feel like I'm in the .com era. I keep hitting refresh because it's so addictive to see it go up. But we're well over that 100 million market cap. When I got here, we were muddling in dangerous territory in terms of market valuation. But given where we are and where I'm very hopeful we're going, that becomes a serious consideration.
Last question from me, and I'll pass it back to Jesse, is, as you are trying to advocate for clarity, comprehensive reform, that's not just a stay, that has permanence, what does sensible regulation mean to Charlotte's Web?
Ideal world, if Morgan, you were Santa Claus or a genie and you could grant me my wishes, it's,
you never know.
Hey, I will take very good care of you. You can pull this off. It would, we would have the THC limits that again are proven by third-party rigorous science. So we get up to that 3 milligram in a 20-to-1 ratio, 3 milligrams of THC in a 20-to-1 ratio. That would make our full spectrum portfolio very, very effective. So that would be one of my asks. The other, I know this one is challenging, but it's very difficult to run a business in America where I have to wake up every day and see what a different state is going to do in terms of the way that they regulate it. So if we could get past states' preemptive rights on an agreeable threshold of THC and other cannabinoids, and that becomes the law of the land and not a patchwork quilt of regs everywhere, that would be very, very important. And then, of course, the regulatory guidelines within the FDA. Ideally, it would be supplement type language that would set standards for quality, standards for labeling, standards for packaging, et cetera, so that we're not in a world where, you can have anything from a facility like ours to someone making it in their bathtub and both being able to call it CBD and make claims around it.
Yeah.
That's a industry destroyer. So I think if I could just get those three, we're in an entirely different place.
Yeah,
I think two of those three seem very sensible. I think the middle one is a tricky one with the whole Constitution and states' rights situation.
Exactly. I mean, if I got the other two and that one didn't come, well, I'd feel fortunate. But I mean, how many products can we think about that have state by state? Like, it's just that's hard.
Yeah. No, I get it. Sorry, Jesse, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good. I was just thinking about those different testing things I've seen, Bill, where somebody thinks they have a 10 milligram CBD product, for example, and half of the time it's 2 milligrams and half of the time it's 18 milligrams. Like, it's just the dosing is just all over the place, which for an end user perspective is the opposite thing you want, because if you try it and it's way underdosed, you don't get the effect. If you try it, you're overwhelmed, which isn't too much of an issue with CBD, but still, if you get twice as much you expect, that isn't what you signed up for. So I think getting that consistency, getting those regulations in place will be huge. And I'm guessing for the Medicare program, that's going to be critical. So I'm curious, as you look at, you try to read the tea leaves on what these regulations are going to look like. What are they going to want for participants in the program? What are the doctors going to like to see? What's going to be compelling for a patient? How are you setting up Charlotte's Web for success based on what you think that program might look like?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate. Our chief science officer, Dr. Marcel Von Miller, is, I believe, the most published cannabinoid researcher in the U.S., if not even a broader geography than that. He's the one who's designed an enormous amount of studies in conjunction with third parties like Hopkins and Dana-Farber and other organizations. So we've got a great repository of data that's medical oriented, that I think will be very compelling for a healthcare professional to get comfortable with what we're going to propose for their patients and for them. And we're also, our facility is designed at the highest level. So we're dietary supplement for all those ingestibles I referred to. We're OTC certified for our topicals. And then this is a bit confusing and tangential, but I think you guys are familiar, our relationship with DeFloria. So our company, we have a 40% interest in, but we are the manufacturer of DeFloria's products that are going through the FDA investigative new drug pathway. They're all geared up to go into phase 2 clinical trials. So we'll be an FDA facility in addition to all the other cool things I mentioned, NSF certified, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're the, whatever you call whatever standard you want, gold, platinum standard of manufacturing. We've got a massive amount of proven real world case studies because our products have been treating folks like Charlotte for over a decade. And all of that information is aggregated and cataloged. And then we're moving forward with RWE programs, real world evidence programs led by Dr. Bon Miller, and packaged in a way that can be conveyed to a healthcare practitioner, licensed doctor, as well as distilled into the key points that a patient who's doing the research would want to understand to ensure that they're getting something that's safe, that's non-addictive, that's efficacious. We've got it. I don't want to say in a pharma grade matter, but I don't know what other term to use. We're at that level of understanding and analysis.
No, that's great context. It's interesting you mentioned the NSF Certified for Sport program. I've been looking at that for Leaf, Bill. I mentioned to you backstage, we have a line called Leaf Organics, which is a great CBD program. And in our cap table, we have a number of athletes from, Jimmy Butler, who's recovering, from ACL surgery right now, is an example of that. And Jimmy's a long-term user of those Leaf Organics products, and he hit us up the other day and said, "Hey, can you check out this NSF Certified for Sport program, and maybe we can work on getting those in some of the locker rooms in the NBA and other places." So I might hit you up afterwards and just get some tips on that NSF program, because that sounds like a pretty cool thing and opportunity for us. Yeah,
Jesse, do hit me up, because it's actually, there's two different things and they're very different. So there's NSF and NSF for Sport. So I can get you in touch with our team that manages that and enlighten you on how that works. There's
okay, cool.
Some nuances.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. And can you unpack the DeFloria relationship a little bit more and talk a little bit about botanical drug development and how they've kind of fit into your broader program at Charlotte's Web?
Yeah. So, there's a whole bunch of Stanleys, 7 brothers, 2 of them, many of them, but 2 of them in particular, were quite active in Charlotte's Web. Joel, who is the former CEO of Charlotte's Web, created a company called Ajna Biosciences in Colorado. And they're doing drug development with a range of botanicals, some cannabis-based, some psilocybin, aptogen-based. There's a venture between Charlotte's Web, British American Tobacco, and Ajna Biosciences called DeFloria. We own, I'm rounding, we own 40% of that collaboration. Ajna Biosciences owns 40%. BAT owns 20%. They got their 20%. They infused the initial capital in some subsequent rounds since then. DeFloria has developed a drug based on kind of the core properties of the drug that treated Charlotte, and they've advanced it and expanded upon it, improved upon it, et cetera. And that drug is intended, when it makes it through the various clinical trials, to treat the irritability associated with autism spectrum disorder. So Ajna Biosciences does all the heavy lifting on, it's very, very difficult to take a botanical and turn it into an FDA approved drug, because the FDA is really designed for single molecule synthetics, because the properties act the same way every single time. It can replicate across every single audience you put it into, or it doesn't. And you can get that understanding, but you're only really solving for a fraction of the variables. With a botanical, it's got a whole lot. We know cannabis got a whole lot of stuff going on, especially in the full spectrum. So you really got to dial in the replicability of the experience, the pharmacokinetics, the pharmacodynamics, so that it's the same every single time. It's complicated, but given that we've made it through the phase one, which is very hard with the botanical, and gearing up for phase two, and we've got, again, a decade of real world experience demonstrating safety and all those other things, we're extremely optimistic of where that drug could go. And the TAM is ginormous, much, much larger than the Epidiolex drug, which is, I lose track. I want to say it's a $7 billion drug today. So intention would be to make it through the pathway of phase two clinical. And then at some point, I would imagine a pharma company, not unlike Epidiolex, a large pharma company would come in and do the actual commercialization of it, bring it to market. We're not designed for that, nor is Ajna Biosciences or BAT. So we'd find a pharma partner to bring it to market. We are in the enviable position, we, Charlotte's Web, of having the exclusive perpetual rights to manufacture the drug. So we're ramping up our facility to make that drug, whoever decides to commercialize it. And that's extremely profitable and lucrative for us. So we're excited to see where this goes in the not too distant future.
That's very interesting. Appreciate the color there. In the spirit of time, let's try to wrap things up. I got a couple of listener questions, Bill, if you're game.
Sure.
So number one, what is the current status of BAT's convertible debenture and what conditions would lead to conversion or amendment?
Who is that? Was that from one of my board members? Who asked that question?
Yeah, supposedly an investor on X, but it's a little suspect, isn't it?
Yeah. Can we tell that listener to stay tuned?
Okay.
We're public and we got a lot of things in the works. I would encourage your listeners, if they're investors in us or thinking about investing, we've got our Q4 earnings call coming up in a couple of weeks. I highly recommend tuning in. I think it's going to be a great call.
Okay. I'm guessing you're not going to love the next one either. Under what scenario would BAT increase ownership, and how do you protect common shareholders from unfavorable dilution?
Yeah. I'm a shareholder. I share their interest in unfavorable dilution, and stay tuned.
Okay. And one more. Will Charlotte's Web also apply to participate in Maha Elevate that starts in September?
TBD. Let's see where we go with this program once it's disclosed. And hopefully we're hearing, I think I shared with you April. Sometimes I hear May. I hope I don't hear June. So hopefully in the coming weeks, possible months, we'll get more clarity around this CMMI program, and then we can figure out where we go from there.
Okay. Well, great. I'll let you off the hook there, Bill. As we wind down here, we wanted to say thanks again to FlowHub for making today's show possible. This is the retail platform trusted by the best dispensaries in the country. If you haven't evaluated your tech stack in years, there's a good chance you're leaving money and efficiency on the table. If you're a serious operator, see what's possible, go over to flowhub.com and ask for a demo. Well, Bill, this was great, man. I think we got 2/3, 3/4 the way through the agenda, but it was such a good conversation. I love the way it worked out.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. I'm always here if you ever want to chat. But really appreciate the discussion.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how things evolve here over the next couple of quarters, and we'll keep you on our list for when we get updates, and maybe have you back another time as well, just to keep us current. I think it's so cool, the work you guys are doing. I love opportunities. We're at the intersection of helping people and making some money, and it seems like you're right in that sweet spot right now.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Jesse. That's how we look at it.
Well, great. And Morgan, always good to talk to you, my friend. We've been busy working behind the scenes on getting some top-level guests like Bill lined up for the next few shows. We don't like to jinx things, but we think we have the most popular guest in higher exchanges history coming back to us in a couple of weeks. So look forward to that. And thank you guys all for listening. Thank you for watching. We've been getting a lot of traction on the YouTube side lately. So do us a favor, go over there and click subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. And we'll see you back here in just about 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bill. The views expressed in this podcast are provided for informational purposes only. Nothing we said should be considered research or a recommendation. All investing involves risk, including the loss of principal.